political economy. So what you have now is a series of cascading failures, and the knock-on effect is what we're going to be suffering for the next month or two if this issue is not resolved. Okay? The pure thing affects everything because we refuse to fix the power sector, right, which has this enormous, knock-on benefit to every sector. So what is happening now is that there's no petrol, there's no fuel, and this country runs on generators. So the big manufacturers are slowing down, cutting down. I understand that some of the telcos are shutting down their base stations because they can't afford to run them. So you're looking at how would I say, a perfect storm, right? And it's a perfect metaphor for understanding the consequences of 16 years of bad governance, right? The thing about life is that you have to leave the world a little bit better than how you found it, right? The legacy of this outgoing administration is writ large. There's lots of profound metaphors here. This is what happens when we, the citizens, allow people who are incompetent as well as dishonest and corrupt governors. That is what was the catalytic element of change during the election. That's what people were intuitive. They might not fully understand this Dogo Turinchi that we're using to explain it. But at the heart of that is really what is driving this change thing. The question now is, can the incoming administration build on that groundswell of change and begin to deliver the goods? One of the things that is very important is that, yes, they have to manage public expectations. Well, Nigerians also have to understand their own culpability in creating this crisis. We want all the rights, but we have no individual responsibilities. The reason why we're the way we are is because we actually mimic the mindset of our leaders. The reason why collectively. And
if Nigerians would align themselves, for instance, you're driving around, let's look at another metaphor here.
Yes.
Driving along the road, you see a security operative, or maybe a police truck, going the one way.
Exactly.
And then the next thing you see,
yeah,
they are supposed to be enforcing
that's
the
the
law.
point. When do we personally draw the line on what is
the other side of it is the next thing you see is, as you said, the Nigerian citizen turns around and follows.
Oh yeah, without question, yes.
So do you
Have you seen
expect
diplomatic cars do that as well?
Yes.
Because you're driving Abuja and you see all these people, and I'm like, you wouldn't drive like this in your country. But you know what? It's Nigeria.
It's Nigeria.
It's free for all.
These are the standards we've found acceptable to ourselves collectively. And it's not a fair assumption because it's actually a small class of Nigerians, numerically speaking, the so-called middle class. I call them the middling class because there's nothing that suggests that they have a sense of their own group ethics, right? The middle class in Nigeria is indolent, right, and is disconnected from the reality of what it will take to build a country. We want all the rights, but we don't want any responsibilities. We've removed the agency of man and our own effort into building this country. Instead, we've outsourced it to either God or the government. Nobody wants to accept responsibility. Oh, they will come. Those people, it's they. Who's they? Who exactly is they? What is the minimum level of what we will not accept? And it's a larger question of citizenship and identity, right? Are we Nigerians? Isn't there any sense of treason in this country? People do things where elsewhere they'll be hung, quartered, and drawn for treason. But we sit back, if you want to just leave them. No, you know how it is. Oh, by the way, by the time it comes to the issue of the rule of law, right? Ethnic sentiments, oh, it's because it's for my part of it. So at what point do we clear the cobwebs and draw that line in the sand and say, okay, beyond this point, we have to change this country. Otherwise, there's no guarantee that the entity called Nigeria is sustainable or will survive. Countries wax and wane.
Let's see if we can bring in Mr. Ademola Adebo, Commissioner in the Code of Conduct Bureau. Mr. Adebo, Mr. Ladner has talked about the fact that what you see in the citizenry is more or less a reflection of what is evident in the leadership. Your bureau, to some extent, is supposed to help monitor what the leadership does, and I stand to be corrected here. So how would you say that comparison by Mr. Ladner is correct?
Yes, it's correct to a large extent, because the fundamental question before us is, as a country and as a people, how do we get to this point where we are? Um, the our NEPA used to work, and our roads used to be serviceable, and our infrastructures used to work and also serve our population. So our institutions also used to work. So what happened to us? Why did we get to where we are? We will get to where we are because of failure of institutions, failure of ideas, and failure of leadership. So to begin to fix all those things, then we have to be able to restore, honor. We have to be able to restore integrity in our system, and we have to go back to all those values to which, as a country and as a people, we're celebrated. Until we can restore those things, we are not likely to be able to fix all those infrastructures that we desire, we wish that it should be working the way they work in other parts of the country. Yes, my code of conduct bureau, is actually set up fundamentally to ensure that to monitor and ensure that the issue of ethics, the issue of morality, is uppermost in the conduct of government business and government affairs. So, to that extent, the failure of our institutions and of our systems is because of failure of leadership, because of also failure of institution which the Code of Conduct Bureau belongs to be able to make our leaderships comply with some of these values. Generally, in anti-corruption literature, we talk about concepts such as, ethical universalism, which simply means that there are certain basic things, that you expect people to live by. Regardless of where you come from, certain things that you know that I can't do this one is not, these things are not tenable. But we get away with all those things because of the high level of impunity in our system.
But Mr. Adebo, your commission, your bureau, as you said, is supposed to monitor the public servants and those in government to ensure. Why is it that your bureau appears not to be doing what it's supposed to be doing, or it seems to be failing?
The Code of Conduct Bureau is not failing. The effectiveness of any anti-corruption agency or initiative can also be measured by what we call anti-corruption infrastructures. So you can only measure performance by what you put into that that agency or that institution. I'll give you an example. What level of funding are you putting into an anti-corruption agency like CCB? What is the level of personnel? What is the level of training? The Code of Conduct Bureau is about 25 years old. President late Yaradua was the first president in the history of the country that constituted the bureau in accordance to constitutional provisions. Before then, nobody has ever bothered to constitute the Code of Conduct Bureau in accordance with the law. So what you've had all over the years, you have an agency without political leadership, without political head, to do the job that the Constitution expects that agency to do. So in other words, you have a very, very strategic institution, created by law, and for almost 22 years of existence of that institution, there was no political head in place to really pilot the affairs of the institution. So to that extent, you cannot even expect any performance from that institution. But that notwithstanding, given with all that limitations, the Code of Conduct Bureau, given the limited resources available, given the limited infrastructures available to the agency, is able to do the job you know, to the best of my understanding and, you know, as much as we can.
Okay,